Okay, now I want to discuss chess notation. Chess notation makes it possible so that we can record our moves to play back the playthrough later, or we can play through games we find on the internet or in books. And I've expanded the area that I'm capturing to show the board and how we write it down. Just to let you know, I am over here in the notation area. These lines show what move number it is, and normally we'd record white's move, and then over here we'd record black's first move. So this would be white's first move, and then there'd be some space and we record black's first move, and on the next line we'd show white's second move, and then some space and black's second move. So how do we record these moves? Well, first, each square on the chessboard has a unique name. Like this square here is called E1 because it's in the column of E. Now notice all these underneath the board, all these columns here have unique names A through H, and each row has a unique number 1 through 8. Okay, so you're going to get anything from A1 to H8 on the board. So this one is called E1. Just by comparison, this square right here is called C and 4. Okay, now how do we record a move? Well, what we do is we normally would write down what type of piece moved and then where it moved to. So we're just recording the final destination. And what I'm showing you is short algebraic, which just shows the destination, and it's the most common chess notation. So what do we use for these piece? How do we show what type of piece moved? I just showed you how to write down the square. Just so you know, when you write down the square, you always write down the letter or the column in a lowercase. So all these, even though these are shown as uppercase, you'd write it in lowercase. So this square would be lowercase e4. So how do we show what piece moved? Well, for pawns, we actually don't show that a piece moved. So there's no piece designation. And this will make sense when I actually show how to write it down. To show that a king moved, we use a capital K, for queen a capital Q, for bishop a capital B, for knight a capital N, not K, because K is already taken for the king, and for the rook a capital R. So let's just play through some moves. I'm just going to move them, like I want to move this to here. So I'm going to move it, and I'm going to explain how it wrote it down. Now, it said E4 because I say you write down what piece moved and then where it moved to. Well, as I said before, we don't show what type of piece moved if it's just a pawn, so we just write down the square where it moved. We know something moved to E4, and we didn't have any type of piece, so we know a pawn moved to E4, and this is the only pawn that can move to E4. Let's say we want to move black, want to move to here. Well, we just write down E5 because we don't specify a type of piece with a pawn, and we write down the designation square E5, and there's only one pawn that can move the E5. Now let's say we wanted to move the knight to here. Well, we know we would use an N. So we'd write down N F3. Okay? This says that the knight moved to F3, and there's only one knight that can move to F3. Let's say we wanted to move this knight to here. In a similar fashion, we would indicate a knight moved with a capital N and the final destination square F6. If you feel like this lecture is going quick, there's a lot to cover here, and you'll get plenty of practice writing down chess moves. So if you understand the basics, and when you use it a little bit, it'll be very clear to you. So then let's say we wanted to move our bishop to here. Okay, so we just write down what type of piece in the final destination square. The bishop moves, so capital B for bishop, C4, because it moved to the square C4. Now what about captures? Well, we indicate captures with an X. Okay, a small X. Like let's say we wanted the knight to move to here. Now you'd say, well, when black just write down capital N to E4? Well, we want to show that the knight captured something, so it would actually be capital N X E4. Capital N shows the knight moved, and it moved to E4, but we want to show captured something. We actually don't show what it captured, but it captured something with the X. Now, how do we show that we gave check to the king? Well, at the end of the move, we write down a small plus sign. So let's say we wanted to capture this pawn and give check to the king, okay, because we'd be threatening to capture the king. Well, this move would be indicated by this bishop, or let's just move it. Capital B says the bishop moved, it captured on F7, and it gave check with the plus. That's how this reads. So I was thinking, as I'm writing it down, I always write down what moved into what square, and then I just need to indicate captures or checks. Let's say the king wants to capture this bishop, so it would just be capital K, small x, F7. King moved, it captured to E7, F7. I'm sorry, F7. Now let's say now this knight's going to move like this, capturing that pawn and giving check. How would we write that? The knight moved, it captured, it went to E5, and it gave check. Okay, so let's just cover. I'm going to clear the board and show you how to show some of the more specialty moves. Like, how do we show the cases where, let's say, two pieces can move to that square? So let's just cover some of the specialties of notation. Okay, I've set up this position to show several different notation things. First, let's cover en passant. So let's say, well, actually, let's cover promotion first. So let's say you're going to promote this piece, this pawn right here. Okay? So how do you show this? Well, you move the pawn. Let's say I promoted it to a queen. So what you show is it moved to A8, and then what it promoted to, Q for queen. If you promoted it to a rook, it would be R. If you promoted it to a bishop, it would be B, and so forth. A lot of people will put A8 equals queen. You'll see that in A8 slash queen. Technically, the equal means a draw in chess, so it's probably more correct to put A8 slash queen or A8Q. So what happens on en passant? Okay, so let's say black moved like this, H5. That's the move H5, and white wants to capture en passant, because it can capture en passant like this. So how do we show that? Well, let's just capture. Well, we just captured as if the pawn was on G. This G captures H6. So we showed where our final destination. And with pawn captures, usually you show where this pawn started and then where it ended up. So we recorded just as if the pawn were, that black pawn were on H6. So what happens when two pieces can move to the same square? Like these two knights can both move to E2. Well, the rule is you show first or you have to add another letter showing which row or column it came from, and you always specify the row first. You always specify the column first and then the row. So let's say this knight here on G1 wanted to move the E2. So, oops, I guess we need to make a black move. We'll just capture. So this knight here moves, and now knight on G moves the E2. Now you said, why did I say knight on row 1, the E2? Because we always indicate the column before the row. You may see some people write down knight on 1, the E2. That's fine in casual notation, but correct notation would be knight on G. So what happens if we want to move, if two rooks can move the same place? Like let's say this rook here wants to move back 1. well, technically both these black rooks can move to this location. So you'd actually just specify the row. So we say, in this case, we say the rook on 4 move to d5, because both rooks have moved there. So, and both rooks are on the d column, so we can't say rook on d moves to d5 because we still don't know which rook. So we have to say the rook on 4, row 4, move to d5. Well, what about cap?